Hello once again, and welcome to this episode of Mindset Mentoring for Athletes, Families, and Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Coach Chuck. And in this episode, we're going to be talking once again about mental health and its impact on your physical health and well-being. Today's guest has quite a background in exercise sciences, as well as some real personal experience in overcoming some challenges in his life. So we'll be talking to Charlie Graffius right after this break. So stay tuned.
Are you ready to elevate your success, whether you're a student, athlete, parent, or entrepreneur? Success Institutes offers transformational programs designed to unlock your full potential in every area of life. With webinars, masterclasses, and mindset training, we provide cutting-edge techniques to help you master your thinking. It's more than just knowledge. It's a life-changing transformation. Instead of paying thousands for a university course, our programs guide you in building the mental, emotional, and physical habits for true success and confidence. Starting with From Stuck to Unstoppable and Unchain Your Potential. We have something for everyone, including tools for families, like our Mindset Transformation Training and 10-Week Habits program. Plus, parents receive our book Confidence for Teens, a new chapter for family, free with just shipping and handling, to help guide their teens through personal growth. And whenever you enroll your family in any of our Mindset of a Champion training packages, you will get our bonus course on winning college scholarships, potentially saving you tens of thousands of dollars. Worried about time, cost, or even willpower? Our programs are designed to fit seamlessly into your life without overwhelming you. We help you prioritize effectively, leveraging the power of synergy and accountability partners to significantly boost follow-through and motivation, ensuring your team stays engaged. And compared to the cost of traditional education, what we offer is life-changing and far more affordable in the long run. If you're asking, will this really work for me? We believe it will. We even offer a satisfaction guarantee if you complete the program and aren't satisfied. Take the next step. Schedule your discovery call today, and let's unlock your full potential together.
Welcome back, and let's welcome Charlie Graffius to our show. Charlie is a strength and conditioning coach with a profound journey from an athlete to an expert in exercise science and motor learning. Born with cerebral palsy, Charlie faced unique challenges that only fueled his passion for sports and learning. After earning his bachelor's degree from Colby Sawyer College and a master's from Columbia University, Charlie returned to Maine to dedicate his career to helping athletes achieve their highest potential. His expertise not only in physical training, but also in nurturing mental resilience among young athletes. Today, he brings a wealth of knowledge on the critical relationship between physical activity and mental health. So let's welcome Charlie to the show.
Thank you, Coach Chuck. I'm happy to be here.
Well, you and I go back a ways, and I've always admired your own personal resilience and determination and goal setting and all that mental things that you brought to the table. So I am glad you decided to come back to Maine and pursue your work here. So let's kind of begin by just having you talk about those childhood experiences and how that fueled that desire for passion for sports and learning that we mentioned in the intro, and kind of bring our listeners up to date with what that really entailed for you.
Yeah, sure. So starting at the beginning, I grew up similar to how your kids did, where athletics were a big part of our lives, and our friend groups were just revolved around all different sports. So wanting to compete, wanting to make the teams, play sports at recess, whatever it was just harder for me because I couldn't exactly figure out why I moved a little bit differently than most kids. And the reasoning for that was because I was born with cerebral palsy, which I'll refer to as CP throughout the interview here. and the form I have is called spastic diplegia. So both legs are affected with muscle spasticity. I'm happy to get into that more if you'd like. But essentially, motor coordination, balance, speed, everything that had to do with movement was impaired. Has been my whole life, and was quite a bit more severe when I was a kid. So really had a hard time climbing stairs, couldn't go up or down stairs independently. As a kid, had to wear braces up to my knees at school, had major surgeries, had to wear braces at night as well. Went to a lot of physical therapy, and luckily was able to have these interventions starting at a young age where the brain was a lot more plastic. So that helped a lot, and the support crew with my family and friends helped a lot. So I'm blessed in a lot of ways to have been able to have access to treatments that not everybody has, but definitely put in the time and effort myself to make a lot of changes happen and be able to reach some of the goals, like playing sports in college, and now really big into hiking. That's my big thing now, and just defying the odds of what is possible is what I have always been preaching. I was a stubborn kid when there were doctors telling me I'd never play high school sports, let alone college sports. I was pretty upset and let them know about that at a young age, and did not, or I'd say I was thriving off of anger and wanting to prove people wrong for a long time. And as I've gotten older, it's shifted away from that, just more towards wanting to do it for myself and to help other people. But that's what got me down this journey. So happy to touch on any of that in more depth, and whatever direction you want to go, Chuck.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing and kind of opening up a little bit. One of the things that, obviously I'm a mindset guy, right? So I'm trying to talk about all that, but you just said something a second ago about, rightly, understandably, there's some anger there and all, but you use that to try to prove people wrong. You turned it into motivation. Now, from my point of view, I don't want to get too much on the semantics of the change in motion, but what I find is that usually when people do that, it switches from anger to determination or something like that. So that is a way of actually letting go of the anger by moving it into something else that's positive. So, you did that in terms of, like, you ended up pitching in high school, and then 2 years in college, and then I believe after the 2 years they cut you, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then you said, all right, fine. But rather than kind of dwelling on that, it was like, what else can I do? So what did you do? You switched to tennis, right? So you played tennis for 2 years. That sort of experience and the understanding of what it takes to try to get your body, particularly with somebody who's got some, handicapping conditions, or I don't know if I always like that word, but anyways, how do you now bring that when you are working with athletes? How do you, what you do, I know, is more than just give a program, right? So can you talk a little bit about those experiences and how now in your master's degree was specialized in some of this movement issues? So why don't you fill us in a little bit on that master's degree background, and then how you're using this with young athletes today?
Sure, yeah. Well, real quick, just to backtrack on one thing you said there, I found that, like you said, the anger can lead to determination and lead to a lot of great things. But I found it wasn't sustainable, and it didn't resonate well with improving symptoms of CP for me. And when I was cut from the baseball team for 6 months or so, I was looking for other schools to play at and was completely fueled by anger. And I was able to really feel that in the body. And no matter how hard or how smart I felt like I was training in the gym, because of the fuel coming from anger, my body didn't respond very well, wasn't moving fluidly. And when I switched to playing tennis, where it was carefree, it was just going with the flow of things, the body responded in a much different way. So if you had a second, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that, just that mindset shift, and how personally I felt like it completely changed how the body responded to coaching and to training, just from that mindset shift.
Yeah, I'm it's almost like I fed you that line or something. That was perfect, Charlie, because that is what I talk about a lot. So having somebody who's from that exercise background, who also experienced that, that's exactly what some of my own research has been very limited right now to some looking at some baseball, right? But there was a study done a couple of years ago, I think, NCAA, that said that athletes who are experiencing anxiety are 2.1 times more likely to get injured. And, that to me made complete sense. That anxiety, the stress, the emotions around anxiety, and sometimes we call it anxiety, this specific psychological determination for what that is. But sometimes it's other emotions besides anxiety, like you just said, it's the anger or fear. It could even be something like that determination. So what I began to look at was number one draft picks in the MLB. Went from 2001 to 2010, and I looked at those first round draft picks. These are the guys who are getting the big signing bonuses, the can't miss prospects. They got all the athletics. They've got everything, right? They check all the boxes. That's why they're first round picks. Yet only about 70% of the, I think it was 70% of the hitters made it to the MLB, and 60% of the pitchers, or those numbers could be flipped, made it to the MLB. And then of those who made it, the average span of their careers amounted to roughly 6 years, and their statistics were just above average. Now, injuries played into that in many cases, not all. But my theory has been, and from talking more and more and more, it's what oftentimes I think is going on inside these athletes is they're proud. They've got all this visibility on them. They are, the number one guy. They've been in all the media, all the press. They're getting all this, and they want to prove themselves. So they're putting that extra pressure on themselves. And when they do that, they don't move as well. They're more likely to get hurt, or they're doing things maybe a little more carelessly than they should, or they get themselves out of sync because they're consciously trying too hard, and all of that would explain why their performance goes down. So the fact that you said what you were feeling, that anger and the determination was, you didn't move as well. The fact that you recognize that, and that's probably because of where you were intellectually speaking, as you were, you're in a program where you're really thinking about those things. That just, once again, it reinforces exactly what I'm trying to tell parents and athletes all the time is you cannot perform optimally when you're holding on to unresolved negative emotions, or even limiting beliefs. You will never be able
Yeah,
to perform to your full potential.
and that actually ties into a big motor learning concept that's from some research called the optimal theory of motor learning, where if you have an internal focus of attention, you're not going to be learning as well as if it was external. So it takes into account like the sensory motor coupling. So if you are playing basketball and you're thinking about being the number one overall draft pick, or you're thinking about something negative, it doesn't matter necessarily whether it's a negative or positive thought, but if it's an internal focus of attention, it's taking away from that sensory information that you could be taking in from the court. And if you have an external focus of attention, you are getting that sensory input from the sport, and the coupling with your motor system is going to be a lot more effective. So I kind of was able to find that out indirectly just through myself, and then learn things like that in this recent master's program.
That's it doesn't surprise me, but it's always nice to hear the research that supports what you experience in some capacity or the other. Um, so tell me then a little bit about how you take what you have learned, both experientially from the books there, understanding like what you just said. How then are you trying to help athletes maximize what their God-given body can do? Can you kind of talk me through some of the things that you're trying to do? Because if there is this mental approach as well, right, what are some of the strategies in the position that you have that you can utilize?
Yeah, I really don't separate the mental and physical at all. I think it's all neural. It's the nervous system runs the show, and that includes our central nervous system with our brain and spinal cord, and then also our periphery. So I really don't separate them, and I try to treat the athlete as much of as a whole as possible. And like you said, it's not just programming; it is a lot more. And a big part of it is just a really thorough assessment of if you want to separate, the physical and the mental, but getting to see where they are at typical stress levels, what their environment is like in every day, whether it's school, home, in the gym, and then seeing how their body changes, their physical numbers in the gym or their movements in the gym are changing depending on stress, or if you get to know them better, they say, oh, I had a rough day because of this or that, and just weighing in all those things to try to make the best decisions in the gym. So I'll never be a strength coach that is prescribing 4 sets of 10 for this every day, no matter what, and then we progress to 4 sets of 8 or 4 sets of 12, whatever it is. There's so many factors that come into play, and I feel like having a trained coach that does take into consideration more than just the weight on the bar is what's going to be optimal for the long term, because of stress and all the other factors that affect the body and the mind, or the one, if we're going to call it that.
Are you finding that the athletes you're working with are beginning to understand that idea of that connection? I mean, there's understanding it kind of on the intellectual level. You hear it, I think, now and then, right? Like you hear top athletes talk about the importance of the mind and all. But I sometimes think there's a disconnect on hearing it and really understanding what that means, so that, an athlete begins to learn to step back and go, yep, you know what? I didn't get the sleep I needed last night, or gee whiz, I was still thinking about failing that test, or whatever. From your experience working with teenagers, and you aren't that many years removed from those years. As you think back to that, did you have, was there that disconnect on like that intellectual aspect where, yeah, I know it does, but you know, I don't know that I really had that aha moment?
Yeah, there was definitely more of a disconnect when I was in the teenage years, and over time, the best thing I've found, if somebody isn't fully buying into feeling, that introspection and understanding, oh, I didn't sleep as well last night, maybe I should tone it down, then using some sort of objective test to show it to them is what I found to be most effective. So a big one I've done for a while is the handheld dynamometer, where you grip and hold and see the force you produce. Um, that's highly correlated with your recovery levels and how ready you are to take on strain. It can also be with something like force plates. So now at the new place I'm working, Durago PTP in Portland, we do a lot of work with the force plates. So if it's a high school athlete, maybe that would look like doing some vertical jump testing on the force plates. And if there's a significant dip in force production or whatever measure it is, then communicating that with them and trying to connect the dots with, oh, maybe that's because of the lack of sleep. And today we're going to tone it down a little bit. So trying to get them to understand their body through data-driven metrics if necessary, I think is really important.
Yeah, that's one thing about, I think, where we've come technologically too, is the amount of information that we can really relatively easily obtain now, which can be really helpful. I want to ask you too a little bit how much, I mean, I know we know the importance of nutrition, right? So you talk about the holistic aspect and all. Do you talk to your athletes too about nutritional things, or without having a specific nutritional degree or what have you? How does that kind of play out in as you are, trying to help the athlete? Do you have those sort of conversations about, geez, what did you eat? What do you eat regularly? Do you get into that at all?
Definitely get into that. And if it's somebody where I feel like they are more on top of their diet, might be talking about it a little bit less. But if it's somebody who has been, uh, you know, some days coming in only eating a protein bar 6 hours ago, definitely going to be checking in a little bit more on that stuff. And if then say I'm doing again the force plate stuff and I notice some numbers are down, then that's just another aspect of talking to them. Oh, are you fueled today? Has anything changed? And if it's a consistent issue, then definitely talking more about it and maybe bringing in a dietitian or a nutritionist to have an intervention if that's something they're looking for, because it's absolutely a huge pillar, nutrition and sleep and all the stuff that you've been talking about online, Chuck. They can't be understated, the importance of them.
Um, so, you got a young athlete who comes in and they want to play in college, right? So they want to get bigger, stronger, faster, right? That's what all the athletes want to do. How do you, I'm trying to get to the whole goal aspect, like how do you work with them to help them, get to those goals and understand that the habits, because here we're going to go back to that mindset thing, right? Like you can't come to you for 3 months and expect like, all right, I did 3 months of work. Now I'm going to be, like the next superstar athlete. This is something that you really need to build into your lifestyle, working out, eating properly, recovery, and all of that impacts your overall mental well-being, right? We know that too. Do you ever have those sort of conversations about like, trying to help them understand the long-term aspect of taking care of their body and how it impacts their mind and everything else?
Yeah, definitely get into it. I mean, I would say I've run into the issue in the past of bringing in too much information to somebody, and it's very overwhelming. I think a lot of coaches have. So trying to pick what is most important. But your question on the high school athlete trying to play, say, Division I baseball, I like to work backwards from the goals. So say that's the goal. We look at, their pitcher, what's the velocity they've got to likely hit, say, be averaging 85 miles an hour. I feel like it's getting higher and higher since I was in high school. So playing in college is even harder now. And then looking at some of the normative values of different combine tests. So the 60-yard dash, things like that. And then also related strength measures that maybe if they're not true normative values, we can look at a lot of things online, like what professional players are doing in the weight room, and then trying to tell them that if this is your goal of playing in college and throwing 85 miles an hour, these are some of the metrics that we're going to need to hit in a couple of years. And then continuing to work backwards from that, what that means about how many times a week in the gym, what that means about recovering from those workouts so you can work out hard 4 times a week while you are also doing baseball stuff. And then, if they are continuing to buy in, then it's going down the rabbit holes of sleep and nutrition or whatever it is they need that's a limiting factor for them.
So when you think back to both your experiences in college, graduate school, now as you're beginning your career and you're working with athletes, can you kind of pinpoint what happens when athletes aren't reaching those goals? Like, what is it that prevents them from achieving that kind of full potential that maybe they, I remember talking to Billy quite a bit about some of the guys in, USM who were, skipping workouts and not doing this and not doing that. Is there anything that you observe that is like a kind of a trigger that man, these guys are just, this got in the way or this is going to get in the way? Is there a common factor there? What do you see in your experiences?
I've found that the guys so I played Division III baseball and tennis, and at that level, the strength and conditioning staffs and everything like that is, it's not as cemented as, say, at a Division I or a pro level, obviously. So at that level, I found that the people that step out on their own and have their own routines that they stick to, whether it's arm care or their own dynamic warm-up, those people seem to get a lot out of themselves and reach more of their potential. At that level where, say, the dynamic warm-up is the seniors on the baseball team taking you through an awful dynamic warm-up where you're hardly doing anything, you're just joking about things and and talking about whatever, not focused enough to really prepare the body. If you're a typical player and you buy into that, you're just going through the motions with what the team is doing. And in most cases, at least at the levels that I played at, that's not going to help you get to your potential. So depending on the level you're at, if there's a really good culture that is promoting high achievers and people getting to their potential, falling into line can be great. But at the lower levels, especially in high school and maybe Division III sports, oftentimes you're going to have to maybe do some research and see what the best people in the world are doing for your goals, and then step outside of the norms of your group and be disciplined in the regimen that you need to do to surpass the people that are in your current environment.
You just mentioned doing your own research and looking at like what the best in the world are doing, and I got a background in advanced behavioral modeling, and that is really what that's all about. Behavioral modeling basically is this idea that if you want to maximize your potential in any arena, you want to find out what the very, very best, the elite of the elite, do in that arena. And you want to find out what they're doing on basically three levels. One are what are those like unconscious beliefs and values and things that they all have in common. That's kind of that motivational piece, that internal motivational piece. Two is you want to figure out what the strategies are that they're using in their mind to perform. That's kind of that psychological component. And then three is what are they actually doing in their body, with their body, those movements. With the idea being the closer you can doing to duplicating that, the more likely you are to get the same results, right? I mean, if you were able to exactly duplicate what Usain Bolt did physiologically and psychologically and everything else, you're going to get the same results. Now, obviously, there's genetic kind of components there that you can't exactly duplicate, but the closer you can get to that, the more likely you are to do really well. So athletes who can, I still remember one of the biggest leaps forward skiing I had was when I was in middle school. One of the best natural ski racers I have ever skied with was on my team, and I would watch him, but I also remember him as we're riding up a lift at Sunday River before a meet. He was like, look at that guy right there. And there's this guy skiing down, and he was pointing out what he was doing. And that is what this kid did all the time when he skied. He was not only watching those skiers, he was then going inside his own mind and body and doing it and feeling it. And that was, a great lesson at seventh grade. And my skiing took a leap forward from that point on, from that lesson, and that visualization aspect of body movement can't be overstated, right? Some of the work you've done, the research, have you found that to be kind of the case in terms of the research too, about that ability to move better when you can visualize through those movements?
Definitely, and I think the old saying, "The monkey see, monkey do," is very real. I mean, we have these mirror neurons, and seeing somebody do things can help trigger some of the similar neural circuits in yourself. Obviously we have physiological differences. So just me watching Usain Bolt run is not going to turn me into Usain Bolt. But some of the firing patterns associated with the way he moves can carry over. So yeah, that's a big thing for me. I feel like I call it YouTube University because I've learned so much from YouTube. Whether it is looking at what college baseball players are doing in the gym or watching them pitch. And than going out and pitching myself. So that's something that anybody can use, and I think it's the best tool that any of us can use.
Yeah, the visual aspect is really, really powerful. I remember this goes back, man. I think it maybe was like a 1970s or 80s thing, but there was a company out of California, and I don't even know if they're around anymore, but this was kind of the new cutting edge thing at that time. And Cybervision, I think, might have been the name of the company, but golf was the big thing, right? And I think for them, part of that was because in the corporate world, people wanted to better their golf game. A lot of business was done out in the golf courses. That whole kind of idea, right? And they put, I don't even remember which pro players swing, but one of the elite pro players, and they combined that swing visually with music and rhythm beats, and the way they ingrained that together was supposed to help you train the muscles and everything to move their swing the same way. So I'm like in high school or so when I first heard about the company and read some article about it, and I was like, wow, that's really kind of fascinating. And of course, there's the famous studies that have been done. I think John Wooden was involved in one of them with at UCLA with the free throws. Right, you had one group practice just shooting free throws every day. Whatever 100 free throws, whatever it was. Another group visualize it and then go and shoot them. And a third group only visualize it perfectly. Visualize that perfect form, feeling it in their body. And at the end of that little experiment, they did a test, and that third group who only visualized had the highest free throw percentage of the three groups, and that was duplicated by another group as well, and it just showed, I think, that power of the mind to help that body move. There's a very simple thing I do sometimes students just to illustrate that, and I just have them point, keeping their arm straight and rotating without moving their arm, rotating at the hips with their eyes shut across their body, and then open their eyes and see where they're pointing to. And then I have them visualize themselves moving further and pointing to a different place on the wall. And we go through that visualize where they do that a few different times, and then they move, and then they open their eyes. And every single time they went further than they went that first time when they went, quote, as far as they could. And then just through the visualization, they end up going farther. It's a fascinating kind of study on what the mind can do with movement. And that story you said about when you were having that anger, that you weren't able to move as well, and you noticed that, it's again that mind body connection, right? That synergy and all. Now, I do believe that it also can work the other way around, right? Like by having athletes working out, you are changing their physiology, which can change their mood. Have you seen that before, where kids might come in and you could tell they're in a bad mood, but by the time they're done, the exercise and all has like kind of shifted that? Have you noticed that at all?
For sure, yeah. And it's well documented about all the benefits of exercise and the endorphins you get afterwards. So I think it's a super great tool to be integrated with mental health stuff. There's a few people I know who have talked about it, but I don't really know if there's anybody really doing work with it in a sense of being practical. But something like exercising paired with talk therapy for high school kids could be super beneficial due to the almost a window of opportunity that you get from the exercise that then could influence the psychosocial things going on in their life, that if you had just taken them to talk therapy without exercise, maybe they wouldn't open up as much. But if they were paired together with, who knows, maybe a coach that does both of them, I think they would complement each other very well. So I hope that continues to take off with people that are thinking about those things.
Yeah. Well, Charlie, thank you again. We're coming towards the end of the time here, and thank you for joining me. And I love having a chance to have a conversation with you about some of our favorite topics here. So it's always nice. You are, I know. So being in Maine, if there's those who are listening to this from Maine, you are working at where again?
It's called Dorigo Physical Therapy and Performance. So there's 3 locations. There's one in Portland, in Westbrook, and in Saco. And I'm mainly at the Portland location, and would be happy to talk to anybody that's interested in training at either of the locations.
Fantastic. And once again, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. Always good to talk to you.
For all of you out there, Charlie's experiences are enlightening in many regards, not only from overcoming his challenges that he had and pursuing that education, but now he's bringing some real important messages to the young people. And as always, I talk about it all the time. Young people today, there's a lot of data out there about the increasing level of stressors they feel. And it can be athletics and the pressure to perform and try to get in college. It can be the relationships. It can be academically. Whatever it is. And the 3 big ones are social, and then the college pressures, which includes academics as well as the extracurricular thing that you're trying to do to help you get into college. But those are 3 of the big pressures they're feeling. And inevitably, those can be traced right back to mindset. And all of you parents out there, and I included myself in this, we invested and invest thousands, up tens of thousands of dollars when you start factoring in college expenses on trying to help our kids get everything they need to really get into the right college and then find the right career and figure all that stuff out. But yet, of all that money we invest virtually nothing in the one thing that probably has the greatest impact on all of those other factors, and that is training that mindset. So for all of you who are listening, I've been making this offer now for anybody who's kind of listening, tuning in. I offer a strategy session, half-hour strategy session. I usually charge $175. Those strategy sessions are about developing a strategy to help you understand what some of these obstacles are on a mindset level so that you can reach the full performance, so you can learn to master your emotions better and manage all those storms of life that come up. I will waive that. All you got to do to access that and get that kind of free half-hour strategy session, if you go to CoachChuck360.com, there you'll find a Contact Me icon. Click on that. You send me a text with your first name, last name, best email, and just put in podcast gift. And what I will do is send you a special link to my calendar, to a unique calendar that doesn't charge for that strategy session, and we can book that call, have that conversation, do some analysis there, take a look at it, and see what might be most appropriate for your child and even for you as parents. Because when you manage your mindset as well, you're that much more effective at helping your child. So, until the next show, I wish you well, and I trust you will live life to its fullest.